I just want to touch on a few things really quick. With all the recent fear mongering going on with the uh, appointment of the Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, and even if you go back to the 2016 campaign, uh, a lot of the fear mongering is due to the American citizens not even knowing how our government works, how it works. When people can say, if this person gets elected, they're gonna send everybody back to Africa, or if this Supreme Court justice gets in, he's gonna overturn Roe versus Wade. He's gonna turn us all the way back to the 1850s, and that's due to people not really knowing, not being educated on how our American government works. Now, I don't want to insult the intelligence of anyone watching this video because I'm very sensitive to that, because I don't like my intelligence insulted. But what I'm learning is a lot of people just don't know things, and so ignorance is a tool that can be used to get what you want out of people, as fear mongering. I mean, I'm guilty of being fearful of things as well. And what I've learned is, majority of the time when I am fearful of something is because I don't know the facts, or I don't know all the information about it. So I can get all these fears in my head. All these things can come in my head, and I can get fearful. But once I do research and read into a matter, then the fear subsides, because I realize, well, that couldn't have happened. I mean, all kind of crazy things can get in your head about something if you don't have the facts. And so what I'm saying is, a lot of these race baiters and whoever, politicians as well, that's trying to get reelected, and they're talking about their opponent, they would throw all kind of crazy things out there and say all kind of crazy things that's not even possible. But that's what they say. So I just want to talk about our government. We have three branches of government. We have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, okay? Now, laws are created and written in our legislative branch. That's our Congress. That's our House of Representatives and our Senate. That's where laws are written. The judicial branch, our Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, and then there's lower courts, but the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. Their only job is to interpret the laws, to make sure, interpret the Constitution, make sure that every new law that's written, or any law or any case that someone brings before the Supreme Court, all the Supreme Court does is look at that case and see, does it go against the Constitution? Does it add up? All a Supreme Court justice does is interpret the law that's already on the books. The legislative branch, which is the Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and our senators, they write law. Supreme Court can only interpret the law that these people write to make sure that those new laws that they try to write and implement aligns with the Constitution. Okay, so a Supreme Court justice can't just get elected and gets appointed and then get on the bench and say, okay, I'm gonna overturn all these laws. They can't do it. That's not even their job to begin with. They don't write law, they interpret law. The executive branch is the presidency and his cabinet. Their job, the president's job, is to make sure the laws that are already on the books are enforced. They enforce the law. That's the executive branch's job. Now, if the president wants a new law implemented or written, he has to go to his Congress. Okay, then they write the laws that he wants. But even with so that's why it's important. The most important people that you elect is not necessarily the president if he doesn't have a good Congress under him, because that's why they call them lawmakers. Now, a person that's elected into Congress, whether it's the House of Representatives or whatever, they just can't say, well, when I get in there, I'm going to write this law and it's going to pass. Even when they write the laws, it has to be voted on for it to even pass. other people, they have to have so many votes in the Senate and so many votes in the House of Representatives for that law that they write to even pass. So the three branches of government are checks and balances. All power is not in just one branch. The presidency doesn't have all power, the Congress doesn't have all power, and neither does the Judicial Branch, which is the Supreme Court. Now let me give you an example of laws that have been written that were not really constitutional, okay? And that's when it had to go to the Supreme Court to be looked at. Let's look at Obamacare. The reason Obamacare was challenged because it was unconstitutional to force American citizens to purchase health insurance. That's unconstitutional. But how it was made constitutional, when it went before the Supreme Court, Justice Roberts said it would be constitutional if it was a tax. So you can tax. It's constitutional to tax people, but you can't force them any other way. So that's what made Obamacare constitutional, because it was a tax, and it was and who was in charge of enforcing that? The IRS. The IRS would be penalized as a tax for not purchasing insurance. And of course, since Trump's been in office, he overturned that mandate, because it was a mandate, and if you did not purchase it, it was a tax, and you were penalized through the IRS. So that part has been overturned. Another thing that's unconstitutional, and because see, the presidency, they do have the ability to sign out an executive order. But even when they sign an executive order, it still has to be within the Constitution. If it is not, it can be overturned. Another example of an executive order being signed that was not constitutional was Daca. When Obama signed Daca, see, you cannot make an illegal a person living in this country, you cannot give them amnesty. You just on your own with just an executive order. So that's unconstitutional, and that is why President Trump has rightly said Congress needs to act. In other words, Congress needs to write a law to if you want to give illegals some kind of amnesty, it has to be a law written. You can't just write it up. It's unconstitutional, and that's why Daca is being overturned, because it never was constitutional to begin with. Now, so all of this fear-mongering, when they say, if this person gets in office, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, that's just a tactic they use to get people to the polls to vote for who they want them to vote. That's why you should always concentrate on what the person is saying that's running for office. What are their policies that they want to implement? And are those policies constitutional? Because I'm telling you, a lot of Democrats want to overthrow the Constitution. They don't want the Constitution. See, the Constitution protects every American citizen. That is your protection. You should never want anybody to say, let's get rid of the Constitution, or let's make it fluid so we can change it to say this and that. Because once you start fooling around with the Constitution, there goes your rights as an American citizen does. So you should never want to put anybody in office that does not respect the Constitution. If they say the Constitution is outdated and antiquated or whatever, if they say those kind of things about the Constitution, that is a dangerous person, because you may say, well, that law, I would like that part of the Constitution overturned, but what about another one? What's to stop them when they start saying, let's get rid of the Second Amendment, let's get rid of the antiquate, let's get rid of the First Amendment, let's get rid of it. And you say, yeah, I don't like that anyway. What about when they say, let's get rid of the 13th Amendment, black people? That's the amendment that abolished slavery. All kind of rights are in that Constitution. So all of this fear-mongering, these pastors, and they know, some of them know and some don't. Let's be honest. Okay, a lot of people that are doing the fear-mongering may not know themselves that they're not factual. They may not know that. But a lot of them do know it. And that's why it's so cynical for them to play on the ignorance of people and fear-mongering. So the Supreme Court justice, I don't care who it is, they cannot overturn laws that's already on the books. That is not even their job. Their job is to look at the Constitution and look at other laws that challenge it and interpret the Constitution. Interpret it. The law comes up just like with the wedding cake thing. What they looked at was the Constitution when it was challenged at the Supreme Court. They looked at the Constitution. Was this person's constitutional rights violated? So that's what you look at. So in this next election, listen to what the people who are running, who wants to get back in power, listen to what they're saying they want to do. And does that, what they want to do, benefit you and your family, or is it going to hurt you? That's what we should be looking at. So there are 3 branches of government. I just want to reiterate that. There's the executive branch. That branch is the presidency, and his job or her job, whoever that's sitting in that seat, is to enforce the laws. Enforce the laws that are already on the books. If that president wants to write new laws, they have to go through their Congress. Their Congress, that's the House of Representatives and the Senate, they write laws. So it's important that the president who wants to implement new laws have a Congress that's on his side, that wants to do them as well. Okay, and then the Congress is the legislative branch. They write laws. The Supreme Court, the Judicial Branch, is the Supreme Court. They interpret the law. Executive branch enforce the law. Legislative branch writes the laws. Judicial branch interprets the law. Have a blessed day.